Hey guys, so today's review is Terre Eau Très Fraiche, flanker to the original Terre. And everyone knows of this fragrance because it gets a lot of mention and a lot of praise. And I think most people have only good things to say about this fragrance. Now the question is this worth buying for you? And I think that it's a bit overhyped, and I'll explain why. There's no doubt that this is a really nice smelling citrus scent with vetiver, and a nice variation on the original. But I think there are many reasons why I personally would not recommend picking this up. Of course, you can always add anything to your collection, but if you're really on the fence about whether this might be a good value buy, I do think that it's a bit underwhelming, a bit uninspiring for me. There is no wow factor. That said, if you consider all the good things that people say about this fragrance, I do agree that there are some real subtle nuances here that make this very unique, especially in the designer game, and that really make this an interesting fragrance. But for most people out there, for the average nose, these subtle nuances aren't enough, they aren't detectable enough to make this a standout kind of scent to me. Rather, most people, I think, especially people who are going to smell you, are going to find this to be a nice but simplistic scent. And you can appreciate the little things that they did here to make this a little bit more interesting, but the vast majority of people smelling you are not going to care about that, right? And that's the reason why I don't think this is the same masterpiece that the original Terre is. So basically what you have here is a watered down, brightened up version with a lot more zesty citrus. And surprisingly, I don't think that this, I know if you watch other reviews, they'll say that when they spray it right away, they're reminded immediately of the original Terre. Actually, I'm not reminded so much of the original Terre. In fact, I was reminded of other fragrances not in the line. For example, Bergamot 22 or Encre Noir Sport, because of a similar focus on citrus. So while the original Terre is, to me, vetiver cedar scent with that flint accord wrapped up by the citrus, this fragrance is a citrus dominant scent first, supported by vetiver, similar to a fragrance like Bergamot 22, where the citrus is the star of the fragrance. I mean, it is named that for a reason. Yet in that fragrance by Le Labo, you do get a similar cool kind of woody dry down that you get here and with the Terre line. But it is ultimately focused on the citrus, and here as well. In the dry down, you do get that similar flint accord, which is nice and which is what makes Terre unique and special. But they basically stripped away the smoothness, the deep qualities of Terre. So they've taken out the resinous elements, in my opinion, that are so crucial to Terre smelling the way it does. And essentially, specifically, I can't detect the benzoin that you get in Terre. And so that resinous sweetness and woody depth that you have is not here. And that's why, to me, it smells a bit bare and simple. And I can't get over the fact that there is an overly sour accord here from the beginning and into the dry down, and from the citrus, the way it's used here. An overly sour accord that is, to me, not my favorite, and makes this a sort of, puts it in a different family of scents. Guys, before we move on and talk more about this fragrance, I just want to mention, watch Mark's review on his Robes 08 channel. He probably has the best review on this fragrance and makes a lot of good points, which I agree with. All of them I agree with, except for the fact that it's an absolute recommendation, right? So I agree with all his points about the scent, the specific notes that come out, the nuances, the subtleties. But like I mentioned in the beginning, a lot of people are not going to detect those nuances, and so there's not so much merit in getting this scent over the original. And I don't think that this is the same masterpiece that the original is. But anyway, when you first spray this fragrance, there is a strong focus on the grapefruit, and it is a very, very tart, zesty, sour kind of grapefruit. Yeah, and you either like it or you don't, but I think for a lot of people it's gonna be a bit too sour. It's almost like you're smelling rind, or you know, it's too much of that peel of the orange and grapefruit. But you know, there is that background of the flint, the cedar that gives this kind of a little bit more balance and cooling effect. But in general, the citrus notes are too strong here. But the only kind of saving grace to me is the geranium note, which is a big player here. And it does a lot of things. It gives this fragrance, you know, puts it more in the aromatic genre. It gives it also a more floral touch as well as a more green touch. And if you like green scents, I think that you may actually like this over the original. This leans a lot more in the green direction. I wouldn't say so much herbal, but there is this aromatic, kind of sharp, clean feel about this fragrance that is coming from the use of geranium. And then again, in the base, like I said, you know, the dry down is gonna be that familiar cedar scent with that, you know, slightly bitter citrus. But it just lacks the smoothness, the resinous quality that you need in the original that gives it that elegance. And so it smells nice, it smells sophisticated, but it's just lacking that mature vibe that I like in the original. If you find the original to be too kind of gentlemanly smelling, too mature, you may prefer this. But if you're a big fan of the original, I don't think that this reminds me of the original as much as the other flankers like Eau Intense Vetiver and Parfum, which seem to be more, you know, intense versions that draw out certain elements from the original. But this one goes so much more in a citrus direction. And the downside also of that is that it does wear lighter, it doesn't project as much or last as long, and it is, to me, more of a summer scent. I'm not saying that this is just a summer scent. You could wear this, it could work really well any season, but it is so bright that I prefer other scents for seasons like the fall, where I would want more like vanilla coming through, you know, just a little more heft. But all in all, I mean, it's a super clean smelling fragrance. And if you like sharp green fragrances and a quite, you know, natural smelling, zesty citrus, you are gonna like this one. If you like scents like Encre Noir Sport that do this sort of citrus with a bed of, you know, cooling kind of vetiver, you're gonna like this one. It's just a similar effect. The last thing I'll mention about this is I think really the make or break factor might be the cumin-like note that you get here. I don't know if everyone's gonna pick this up, but it is actually one of the first things I noticed about this fragrance, aside from the really sour qualities. There is this kind of cumin-like note that reminds me a bit of body odor. It's not that bad, of course, but you know, and I'm not, you know, totally put off by it. It's okay to me, but it is not the most pleasant kind of scent. It does give this fragrance more depth, and that's really, you know, that's really an example of the sort of hidden ingredient, right? Whatever it is that was thrown in here, it has that cumin-like smell that is often used in fragrances that deceptively have a very bright citrusy top, but when you add this, it does give it more depth and character, but it doesn't work on everybody's skin. And you know, I don't know what to say. I mean, I'm a little bit torn. Like I said, it's not such a bad thing, but it is quite there for me. So you know, I'd prefer the original because it's just a more smooth and clean smelling scent, whereas this is a little bit too crisp, too sunny for my taste. And it's missing that elegance primarily because it's missing that resin. You know, the upside of that is this does become more wearable. It's a little bit more mass appealing, even though the original I think is pretty mass appealing. But it is gonna be sort of an easier reach, right? No matter how hot, how cold, or whatever, you can just grab this. Casual, formal. I did feel that the original does have a little bit more of a formal twist. So this one is a little bit more casual and more sporty. And so you might like this for that reason. But, I think if you have the original and love it, I would stick with that. I don't think this is absolutely necessary. And I think that it is a bit overrated, and you might also similarly find it quite simple. Right, guys? So that was a short one for you. Let me know what you think in the comments, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.